Excellent. So thanks so much for the opportunity to talk tonight. I'm going to give you just a very high-level overview of some of the work that GrantBook does with foundations and grant makers all across North America, and in particular our approach to looking at the cross-section, the intersection of innovation, philanthropy, and the future of work. So again, just going to give you a quick sense of who we are, and then some things that we're looking at when we talk about innovation and philanthropy. So we have a very specific method of inquiry about what we're looking at when it comes to disruption and innovation in the nonprofit and charitable space, followed by some of the trends that we're seeing and the types of skills and competencies that are required to really thrive in the digital era, and then just showcase some of the recipes, software recipes that our team works on that makes some of what we're describing and making philanthropy a little bit more gentler to those who need it, and then open it up for some questions. So we're a small yet mighty team based out of the Center for Social Innovation in the Annex. My colleague Kenny over there is one of our implementation specialists. And we work across North America with foundations and grant makers of any size. Anyone here ever worked for a grant maker or foundation or has applied for a grant to Toronto Foundation? Okay, so a few people here. So there's about 90,000 foundations in North America that manage about nearly $900 billion in assets. And their goal is to give out money to qualified nonprofits and charities to do work to, say, improve the environment, support healthcare and education, etc. This is just a sample of some of the foundations we work with. So again, their mandate, they have lots of money to give. Their goal is to use technology to give it better. What we have discovered in doing lots of our different implementations and the work that we do is, again, many other industries are moving really quick. There's lots of disruption. In philanthropy, it's not moving as fast. There's no real major reason for a grant maker to necessarily change the way that they've done things for so long. So part of our innovation question has been asking sort of four big, broad questions. What other industries are undergoing substantial and rapid change? What are the companies that are leading the disruption? How are they building their teams and attracting top talent? And what are examples of job descriptions that will, again, allow them to live life in the fast lane? And then try to apply that to the 90,000 foundations that I mentioned that have billions of dollars to give away that sometimes can take months, if not years, to get the dollars out the door, where other industries can, again, do transactions within mere seconds. So this line of inquiry, again, has us taking a look at other industries that everyone in the room here is probably very familiar with. But when we talk to some of our philanthropic colleagues about how some of these industries are being disrupted, who are the companies that are leading the disruption, and how are they doing their hiring, we're trying to, again, better understand what they might begin to think about when they look at building their teams and talent. So some patterns that are beginning to emerge, and I spend about 2 hours each week on websites of all shapes and sizes, career sites, looking at jobs that organizations are hiring up for. And again, there's a whole list of, when we look at the industries, travel, health, education, etc. Again, a lot of these job descriptions are probably very familiar to everyone here in the room, whether it's an experienced researcher, a prototype lab manager, head of consumer insights, engineering lead for APIs, or a data scientist. What's really interesting when you begin to really look at how they're organizing their career pages and how, again, they're really looking for the most creative of all types. And again, this is a real tell on how organizations are trying to attract the best, retain the best, and build teams that can really deliver great work. So in this example, Airbnb, we look inside and outside for inspiration and learning. And again, some of the positions that I described on the previous slide would be indicative of who they're trying to hire up for. Fitbit, again, uses a very aspirational message, encouraging people to live more active and healthy lives. But again, an organization that is really data-driven. And again, some of the positions they're hiring for would fall into that same category. Netflix, same sort of thing. There's a way that they build their teams and are doing teaming to embrace complexity and context and how do you work differently in a rapid environment. And again, some of the positions that they're hiring for are a blend of design, a blend of data scientists, a blend of rapid prototyping, which looks very, very different than the 90,000 foundations, say, in North America that have a very more traditional approach to building their teams. So again, just wanted to sort of draw your attention to just some of the contrast. With all of this money available to solve a lot of community problems, other industries that are undergoing rapid change, and some of the work that's required that our team is doing to try to encourage organizations to think a little bit differently. And again, in all of those examples, this is our surprise and delight page. You know, the organizations that are building things that people actually really like is the big smile. When you're not applying the right types of design principles, when you're not really prototyping in the right way, you're going to disappoint people all the time. So in philanthropy, again, when it can take weeks, if not months, to make a transaction to a qualified nonprofit or grantee, then we're trying to figure out, again, how do we make philanthropy more frictionless? And part of what we do too, as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time on career sites looking at some of the jobs that the market is looking for, and there's an absolute trend that's out there. And I'm just going to click through here. Let's see if this works. This is just a sample of the online database that, again, I'm curating all the time. So when we take a look at one whole section of the economy in the more tech-enabled space, private sector, highly funded, and you look at the charitable nonprofit sector, the types of positions that are hiring for, again, there's a big gap that's growing in how the nonprofit philanthropic sector is looking at team and talent versus how other industries are. And so again, it just provides a bit of a glimpse into some of the challenges some orgs are going to face in order to surprise and delight their end recipients over time. And one of the most interesting trends, and I'm going to then show you a little bit of what we're doing on some really fun integration work, is LinkedIn publishes their top 25 skills to get you hired each year in different marketplaces. Anyone come across this article by chance? One or two people? And so the work of GrantBook, again, just to be clear if I wasn't in the beginning, we don't make any software ourselves. We work with many other leading software companies to implement and integrate their solutions. And in doing so, again, we are just seeing where a handful of years ago, there was only some choices of the tech that you could use to deliver your programs and services, and now there's many. We've gone to abundance. And one of the top skills that are being hired at middleware and integration services is people who know APIs, who know how to connect multiple systems of record, not trying to build everything from scratch, and are really, again, taking a look at different categories of software, which I'll talk to in a moment, and making sure that data can flow safely, securely across different platforms. That then allow for, again, people looking to access funds or collaborate to make that a little bit easier. So in this particular case, I just sort of pulled up the slide that the skill of middleware and integration, any API coders here? Anyone do APIs on a regular basis? One of the hottest skills in the marketplace. Yeah. So who was looking to hire? Okay, you might want to talk to this guy after. And so again, just give you an example of how pervasive and important this concept is. We spent nearly 400 to 500 hours last year exploring the API integration space. In the top left bubble is one of the many, there's about 30 different grants management software solutions on the marketplace. We're just highlighting one. This is SurveyMonkey Apply based out of Ottawa. But in the top right quadrant, there's at least 20 or 30 different cloud-based accounting systems. On the right, there's, again, survey and evaluation tools. There's a whole range of office productivity tools, whether it's G Suite or Office 365. There's different content management tools. There's different BA tools, and the list goes on and on. There's about 20 different categories, multiple vendors in each category. And then in the middle, there's actually a whole range of integration as a service software companies too. Some of you might be familiar with Zapier or If Then Then That. There's others like Workato and Scribe. And so now it's becoming half art, half science, and how do you pick the right technology within a category that's going to work well for you, followed by how do you then make sure all of the software works well together. To again, make sure that your data is safe, secure, and it's being syndicated in the right places at the right time. And so what thought we'd just sort of share with you, because again, part of our work is just providing education about technology planning in the philanthropic space. Again, 90,000 foundations that give it a lot of money. And we're trying to use the baking metaphor to help sort of socialize the idea of how powerful integration as a mindset, API-first strategies, connecting tools that talk, and making sure that you've not let anything undone be all laid out. So again, this is just one of our personas, Fernando. He's a grants officer, and he's looking how to, again, collect, curate, and share grant data with his colleagues. So in the baking analogy, you need to know what type of bread you want to produce. You have to know your audience to know if there's any dietary restrictions. You need to make sure that you follow the recipe in terms of amount of time that's required, set the proper oven temperature, etc. And software recipes, as you'll see in the example that I'm about to give, sort of follows this along too. That you have, it's part art, part science, and the more you do it, the better you can be at it, and hopefully the people who are tasting your products are going to like it more so too. So, and again, this one simple example, multi-system integration. We have done many multi-systems integrations, not just data moving from one system in one direction, but back and forth. And again, in this example, a grant maker where a grantee has come in and made an application using this one particular tool, SurveyMonkey Apply, but again, there's many of those. Going through and adding information. So again, it's really easy for them to apply for a grant that they really need to deliver on their program or service. They're going through, and then the reviewer in the back end has a chance to say, yes, we like this project, or we don't. So for the reviewers who are being asked to volunteer their time to adjudicate the proposals, they can. And then from there, data can be automatically syndicated into a CRM. In this particular case, it happens to be Salesforce.com, which is fairly popular and portions in the philanthropic space. So anyone who needs access to portions of that grant data now have it available in a CRM. But here is where you can then create a very simple recipe. Anyone here, I think I saw a few people who've used Zapier. A few people familiar with Zapier as an integration tool. Really simple to, again, have data, say, move from Salesforce. You can parse and format data in a variety of different ways. You could anonymize data. You could create other strings and URLs. And then from there, you can have it go directly into a Google Sheet. And then the Google Sheet has a subsection of otherwise lots of information that would be in the system that then can get wrapped in a bit.ly and then shared out with your colleagues. So in this particular case, you can then have data within seconds move from a grants management system safely and securely into a CRM, where a portion of that data is then put into a spreadsheet, wrapped into a bit.ly, and then shared, say, via GChat, etc. So when we talk about shareability and the importance of collecting, curating, and sharing information as quickly as possible, integration as a service and some of these skills to understand how your team works, how to integrate different technologies is becoming increasingly important. So again, in this example, going back to the baking recipe, and the more we do this, the more and more we see this recipe, 75 minutes to design, 30 minutes to configure, 60 minutes to test, but you get 200 hours of a productivity bump and increased data reliability of about 25%. We see often version V2 of a spreadsheet, V6, and no one knows exactly what you're working off of, or has downloaded a file from another system. And again, where this is now one version of the data truth, where again you have a bit of an audit trail to go back and take a peek at where the information has come from. Where this now becomes important for any civic-minded organization that, again, this is what we see. So on most of the foundations we work with use at least 10, if not 20 different technologies. So whether if it's office productivity like G Suite, Zoom, Slack, they're using project planning like Trello or Smartsheet, they could be using, again, Eventbrite, etc. The modern digital organization, when you open up the hood, this is typically how many different technologies they'll be using. This illustration here, service-oriented architecture, is about some of the grant makers we work with. But again, I think if you were to look at a lot of even nonprofits, underneath the hood of a lot of nonprofits, you would see roughly the same. So again, a big question about how do you safely and securely connect technologies. And so to sort of close out some of these remarks, just wanted to give you a glimpse of some of the work that we do with certain foundations, some of the technologies that we use. But most importantly, terms like innovation get thrown around a lot. Everyone says they're doing innovative work, they're creating innovative product. Our characterization about what innovation is and what it is not actually is really most and foremost about skills and capabilities. It's not developing a product. You really have to figure out how to jam well with others who can bring different ideas and perspectives, not saying that you have the perfect idea on what the product or service is going to be. And then, of course, people in the room are very well aware that's enabling new team structures, not reinforcing the old ways of working, decision-making, and hierarchy. And again, importantly, seeking for inspiration and ideas everywhere. So again, it sounds like a lot of people in the room, that's your natural orientation. In philanthropy, that's been around for a long time, where they've been doing things a certain way. That's not always necessarily the case, and sometimes they rely too heavily on sector-specific framing. And then, of course, in the technology space, there's all of this hype. So how do you, again, separate the types of technologies and approaches that are really going to deliver, the types of ways of working that you're hoping to enable, versus, again, trying to adopt every whiz-bang technology, trying to put it all into your stack, trying to, whether it's blockchain paired with machine learning, paired with all of this other stuff, you need to be really, really discriminate about the type of tech that's out there and get smart about API-first technologies and how they connect. And then, of course, there's just, like you saw in the recipe example, tinkering and iteration is just so important. Like building the perfect plan, as most of you know, is sort of a bygone era. But again, really then focusing on small wins leading up to big change. Like again, having multiple recipes working concurrently in your stack is going to snowball into something big, versus again trying to focus in on the perfect plan and hoping that's going to result in something that is going to surprise and delight your users. So in that short little description, again, just wanted to give you a flavor for innovation, philanthropy, and the future of work, and some of the things that our teams are working on to make philanthropy a little bit more conducive to getting dollars out to those that really need it. Thank you.
We have time for 2 questions. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I think I understood all the API talking technology part of it. I think where I'm still confused is what GrantBook does.
What GrantBook does? Yeah, so we do technology planning for some of the foundations that are on this list. Where is it here? Go back. So, yeah, IT consulting. Yeah.
So the governments aren't up there. So what's your thought on that?
Hard to work with. We're a small shop. So we're 12 people versus the types of tech planning.
I agree.
Yeah. It's hard for small teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do one more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so as an agency of government, their arm's length mandate and a separate board makes engaging with them different than if we were to go into a ministry or department for all the procurement rules that are sort of out there, even though there are some procurement rules within OTF. But yeah, we do work with organizations that are a bit arm's length.